Today I'd like to introduce my special guest, Tyler McCaffety with K&G Capital Mortgage, and we would like to welcome you to another episode of The Key to Understanding Credit by J.D. Henry. Tyler, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the business, in the mortgage business.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Jimmy. This is
You're
fun.
welcome.
I always like doing I like doing podcast interviews. It's entertaining, it's informative for people, but I actually got my start in finance when I actually went to Sam Houston State University. And it was the only college at the time, whenever I went, that had a major in banking and finance. I decided you probably knew James Bain. He mentored me all kind of growing up, baseball coach, and he owned a bank in town. And I said I wanted to own a bank when I grew up. Wanted to be like James on that. And when I went to Sam and I applied, I actually did not score high enough on the math part of the exam to get into regular math. So it tells you don't have to be great at numbers or math in order to get into finance, because I actually had to take remedial math in college when I started off. I got past that, found finance classes, fell in love, and ended up getting the opportunity to start a mortgage department for a state bank here in Texas, in East Texas. They didn't have a division, so I actually came here with no experience as far as starting a mortgage department, and just boots to the ground, started working it out and figuring out contacts, figuring out how to actually give people advice financially. Because mortgage, you have an opportunity in what we do to guide people financially. It's not just you call and apply for a mortgage, right? You actually have to take people's information and find out what's in their best interest. What are they looking for, right? And so whenever I came here, knew nothing. But once you meet people, you get to talking to people, you learn things. School really doesn't teach you much about business that you need to know in order to do it.
Right.
Business teaches you what you need to know. And if you take it seriously enough, people will guide you along the way. It's not always, my father always taught me in business, it was not what you know, it's who you know.
Amen.
And then it's what they know.
Sure.
Right? So, got the opportunity to come here, start my mortgage career off, and the rest is history from there.
Well, yeah, you had mentioned James Bain. James Bain, of course, was my banker, and James is a wonderful fellow. You have to find somebody that you can mentor to and look up to and trust, and that's how you, your environment with the people that you keep, and you learn from those people, and that's to be successful. You find successful people,
right.
But on your mortgage company, do y'all do just houses and land, or both? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, primarily everything that I do on a daily basis is going to be residential real estate.
Okay.
But I took an approach to mortgage and finance in a different route than most people do. A lot of people in mortgage, all they do are mortgages for a single family residence or duplexes, things like that, right? But I took it from the perspective of, I want to be not just the all in all for everybody. I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I want to be a master of finance for everybody that calls me and asks me a question. So I actually, when I started in mortgage, was an underwriter.
Okay.
Which was a different approach than a lot of people in our business. A lot of people start off as a loan officer, they get deterred from the struggles, and then they go become an underwriter because they just don't want to deal with the day-to-day front-facing part of the business. I did it backwards because I knew I wanted to figure out what problems loan officers run into. How do underwriters think? What problems do we run into on a daily basis? Well, if I knew how underwriters thought and how they think and how they approach problems, then I could solve those problems before we ever got to underwriting.
Right.
Right? So when a client applies with me, I can pretty well already see the path we're going forward all the way to closing, right? And I know what problems we're going to run into. But as we go along in my business, I have developed it and built it from just single family homes to where I can do commercial loans, I do land loan financing, construction. A lot of lenders in our business won't touch manufactured housing. So it's a whole nother department in mortgage for manufactured housing. The rules are different as far as the houses go, the borrowers go. It's kind of a stricter level. There's kind of more regulations placed upon it because it's a different type of asset, right? A lot of people have always thought that manufactured homes are, they depreciate in value. We've noticed that they don't depreciate in value, especially over the last probably 5 to 7 years.
Correct.
So they're actually growing in value now because of how they're built.
Right.
A lot of the standards for how they're built are almost the same as how a stick brick home are built, right? Not always the same material, but we're seeing that they're becoming a much better asset class for clients. So I developed my business to be a professional in manufactured housing financing, but even if I cannot do a loan, I make sure that I direct somebody to where they can get what they need, right? Or, kind of like the way your book focuses on credit, right?
Right.
Probably one of the biggest problems people run into with mortgage financing is that they call a banker, they call a loan officer, and that person says, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You need to work on your credit. And that's all they tell the person. They don't tell the person how to fix their credit. They just say, you got a problem, you need to go fix it.
So this brings up a good question to you. So what does make you outstanding in your field? Because I hear a lot of good things about you out there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, it's personal,
There you
right?
go.
It's personal. When somebody applies for a mortgage, I don't care just what you qualify for. Number one, I care what you can afford. And number two, if I cannot qualify you for a mortgage right now, you're not just calling for me to qualify. You're calling and asking for advice, right? I have people that I tell all the time, I'm never going to tell you no. I just might tell you not right now. But here's what you need to do in order to get qualified to buy that house that you want to put in for your family, that you want to start off for your investments, whatever that may be. So like with credit, I actually do a credit analysis for all my clients. So even if they have great credit, a lot of times there's still something I can recommend to them that they could do differently to improve maybe their credit score. I've had clients legitimately never had a late payment. They paid all their bills on time for their entire life. And they were in their mid-50s, but they said, I just don't understand. My credit score will not go above a 680. I don't understand why. Well, I go and look at their credit, and it's because the way they manage their credit cards, right? They always paid them on time, but the balances were too high from what they were allowed to use versus what they used.
Sure.
Right? They didn't play the game the way the credit bureaus wanted them to play the game. So I give them advice and I tell them, here's how you improve your credit. And literally, I cannot count how many clients that I've told them to do this one thing and their credit score jumps 100 points in a month. And they call me back and they're like, it worked. I go, I know.
Give me an example of the one thing,
So
if you had an example.
I have a specific example that I love using because he was a veteran.
Amen.
Veterans are my favorite borrowers to help. Number one, because I think that it's my duty to serve them in what I do. They've served this country and they've served us, so it's my job to serve them whenever they call and ask my help. So I had a client one time, he was a veteran. He had a 574 credit score. And if you don't know, with the VA, typically you need a credit score of at least 580 to qualify.
Right.
So he was right there, he was at the threshold, but he had been told no by 3 other lenders that he called before me. Realtor called and said, you need to call this guy. I hear he can make things happen. So I talk to the borrower and I tell him, hey, look, if you will pay this one credit card down to this specific dollar amount, don't pay it off, pay it down to $25 is what I told him. Pay this one card to $25. We're going to wait until it updates. You're going to get me a statement. I'm going to turn it into the credit bureau for you. And we do what's called a rapid rescore. A rapid rescore allows me to boost the score manually through the credit bureaus. So he paid it down, he gave me the statement, I submitted it to the credit bureaus. His credit score it was from the time he paid it to from the time I pulled his credit report to the time I submitted it back and got it back, 10 days his credit score went from a 574 up to a 684.
Amen, brother.
Went up 110 points in 10 days because he did one thing that I asked him to do. And he went from being ineligible for financing to eligible for financing and buying his house. We closed his house 30 days later.
Isn't that exciting? And that's wonderful, because that's the difference maker that you make. You know all about it and you do what you need to do and then some.
Right.
Of course, you study so much and educate yourself on how to improve and how to make it work for your clients. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it's making that dream a reality. And it legitimately kind of all the time and the experience and the headaches and the hours I've spent, reading and learning and doing and running these scenarios. When you make that deal happen for that client that's been told no, and they get to the sign on the dotted line the day of closing and they call you and say thank you, or when you get that text message that just says, man, I really appreciate you, all the problems and all the things you have to deal with on a daily basis, it makes all of that go away And
you have such a wonderful feeling. So,
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's tremendous. And if you had one thing to give advice on people about credit, what would you talk to them about the credit?
start as soon as possible. As far as with my kids
Right.
specifically, when my children turn 12, I have 3 children. When they turn 12, I am going to add them as an authorized user on my credit cards.
Right.
Okay? Only one credit card, because they don't need 3 to make it work. I just need to add them as an authorized user on a credit card. And if as an authorized user, they're going to get credit on their score and their report for all my history on
Right.
that account. So as long as it's a perfect payment account and I keep low balances on that credit card, they're going to start off in life way ahead of where I started, because I started off with like a 640 credit score at 22 when I figured out, hey, I better start playing the game sooner than later, because I'm not going to pay cash for cars and automobiles and things like that. Not until, hopefully maybe later in life I get that opportunity, but I need credit. You need credit to operate, right? If you want to borrow money, you better have credit.
Well, in today's society, you know, to open up a utility account, a utility bill account, check into a hotel, motel, even though you don't charge on it, they want a credit card.
Correct.
So
Yeah. Well,
you got to have it.
What is credit?
Yeah.
Credit is a past payment history.
Right.
It's telling, do you pay your bills on time?
Right.
Do you take care of your business? Can I trust you if I'm extending an account to you, whether you, like you said, it's utilities, whether it's a home loan, a credit card, an automobile? Are you going to pay me back, or what's the likelihood that I'm not going to get this money?
And it's so simple, people miss it because it's a promise to pay. That's all it is.
Right.
When you do an online application or do one in paper form, you'll read the fine print and it says, I promise to pay to the terms of that. And of course, everybody, whatever it is, as far as credit, needs to read the terms and say, hey, you know, if they'll do the right thing and do it on time, it's so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, credit's not complicated.
Yeah.
People always, the problem is no one's taught credit growing up.
Right.
It's not something they teach you in school.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everything that I've learned, I taught myself by pulling thousands of people's credit reports and analyzing them.
True.
I could have just pulled the credit reports and moved on and said, you qualify, you don't qualify, and moved on, and never studied to figure out what made that credit good and what made that credit bad.
Well, and that's why that I wrote my book, The Key to Understanding Credit, because I started at a very early age, 21, managed a clothing store here, and one of my jobs was to open new credit accounts and collect slow payments, no pays, and then went to work for the Ford store here locally and got to see it on a bigger perspective and thought, man, you know, it's so important because it's your reputation's what it is. It follows you all your life.
Yep.
And, you know, can you correct a low score? Sure, but you have to correct your lifestyle of your payments. In other words, if you've been slow pay or no pay, you change to up pay. I'm going to pay it on time, and if I've got 10 credit cards, I'm going to cut most of them in half and pay them off, and you know, and make sacrifices. It's not easy, as you know. It's just doing the right thing.
I learned a really good quote not long ago, and it was that the most difficult choice you make today is the one that makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
And it's uncomfortable to change your, lifestyle or to make decisions that, well, what am I going to do today? Am I going to go out to eat, or am I going to stay home and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to make sure that I can use that money to pay the minimum payment on my credit card so that I stay current?
Correct. Yeah.
The difficult decisions make us uncomfortable, but they set us up for the success of the future.
Well, and I've said this before on my podcast, you know, people get excited because they're having happy hour at a local business, and then they go and get happy at the happy hour, and they use their credit card and they get it in the next month, and the reality is they're not happy because they overspent, especially if when they got to feeling good after their second or third refreshment, they bought everybody drinks.
Yeah.
So, you know, it complicates things, but it's just life choices. And Tyler, I want to appreciate you for doing part one this morning for K&G Capital Mortgage. Tell us a little bit about your company and your phone number and your location for your contact number if people want to contact you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm super simple to find. Tyler McCaffety, K&G Capital Mortgage. We're in Huntsville, Texas, over on 1312 10th Street. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm all over the internet. I'm not hard to find, that's for sure. Phone number is 936-661-7618. That's my cell phone. I don't give out my office phone. because people got to be able to find me wherever I'm at. So,
So he is serious about doing this. He's all in. He gives you 100% of his time and then some, which comes to 125%.
That's right.
Thank you again, Tyler.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Appreciate it.